11 months ago, I did my first YouTube video. And this past week, I experienced my first ever media day. What was that like? Locked On Illini. Let's go.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another weekend fun edition of Locked On Illini. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Simple reminder, we are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I got such a wonderful response to that weekend edition last week. So I basically thought to myself, this is something I'm going to kind of do as often as possible. And when it comes to topics, this is kind of a more relaxed, chill. If this is not your cup of tea, that's okay. My feelings won't be hurt if this is not something you want to listen to. But on your way out, do hit that like button, subscribe button. That does really help the channel grow. This particular episode, I'm actually going to be talking about my personal experience at Big Ten Media Day. Now, this was the first time I was able to attend, and I gave a recap of what we heard from the different coaches, whether it's Illinois or some of the other Big Ten coaches. But I kind of want to give an outsider's perspective, like your viewpoint. 11 months ago, I was a fan. 11 months ago, I was watching media days on the Big Ten Network and, kind of wondering what that experience was like. So I wanted to kind of give you guys the lowdown of what Big Ten media is actually like. So for this particular episode, I'm going to bring someone else on who I got to meet for the first time at Big Ten Media Days. Abbie, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Abbie, before we get started, why don't you just let the folks know where they can find your stuff?
Sure. So on Twitter, I'm at Abbie something, and I am just recently part of the Go Big Redcast, which is, it's a Nebraska podcast, but we talk about other things. So definitely check us out there as well.
So Abbie, this was actually your first Big Ten Media Day experience as well, right?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, very surreal experience. I guess let's just get started. You find parking. We get emails basically the week before saying, hey, this is where you park. This is what the Wi-Fi is going to be like, et cetera, et cetera. So you find parking, and then immediately there's only one entrance in the entire stadium. This particular year, it was at Lucas Oil Stadium. You go through the entrance, pick up your media badge, take the elevator up, and then they kind of just guide you to the football field, right? I mean,
yeah.
Is that any other way to describe that?
No, it was surreal. I went, my boyfriend is also in the media, and he has been before. So that was really nice. But it was funny. He goes, I get lost every time. I turn the wrong way every time. So every day was kind of a, which way do we turn? Oh, right. We just followed the Big Ten stickers all over. But yeah, stepping onto that field he said you get used to it. But he goes, no, the first time is always, it's so surreal. You're like, oh, this is it. We're here. It was really exciting.
For a lifelong sports fan like myself, as an avid NFL watcher like myself, like I knew it was going to happen, but I wasn't ready for it. I'm not gonna lie. Basically you go through the tunnels, and then you actually, as you're walking through, you look around, and you're on the field itself. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's like, you dream of moments like that as a kid, like playing football, for the NFL or whatever. But I had, what's it called? Like imposter syndrome as soon as I walked on the field.
Yes.
Basically looking around and seeing some of my favorite college football personalities. And I'm walking there alone, obviously, for the first time. And I'm just like, what am I doing here? Do you get that sort of feeling at all?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I'm sure, I'm going to keep bringing it up. I'm sure Dustin got so annoyed because I'd be like, Dustin, that's so-and-so from Twitter. That's that guy from Big Ten Network. Oh, do you know who that is? He's like, yeah, I do. It's like, oh, okay. Yep. Cool.
Right. Yeah. I know.
It takes some time to kind of get over that kind of fan feeling of these are people I follow. These are people who break news about football, and they're here. They're 10 feet away. I could go introduce myself. I won't. Because you said, there's so much like, you don't know who I am. I'm not important. I shouldn't be here. I'll leave you alone. But yeah, it was very cool. And yeah, very starstrucky, I would say.
100%. So you walk in, and I got to, at that point, I was texting back and forth with some of the Locked On people. So I met with them. They're like, hey, there's a cafeteria in the back if you want to get a water, if you want to get a quick bite to eat, which is what I did. And then it first starts off with each coach, going up and having 15 minutes to kind of talk as long as he wants or as short as he wants. As Mr. Deshaun Foster, probably had the shortest speech in Big Ten Media Day history. But then
I would disagree with that. I'm going to real quick disagree because I think last year, not last year, 2 years ago, our coach at the time, Scott Frost, walked up and said, "Nope, no opening speech. Ask me your questions." And
is that right?
it was controversial. It was a moment. But yeah, it was still very short. It was surprisingly short from Foster this year.
What wasn't short was Brett Bielema. Now, obviously, he was the first coach to go up. And so me, again, having nerves, but I was like, all right, these are some of the questions that I plan on asking myself. I talked about it in the episode right before Big Ten Media Day, basically letting the audience know which questions I wanted to ask. I knew I'd only get a chance to ask one. So it's just, okay, which one should I ask? So again, 15-minute allotment for each head coach. Brett took 13 minutes.
Yeah.
Then Brett had one question asked, and then he took 2 minutes to answer that one question. And then all you hear is, "Thank you, Brett." And he walks off the stage. So I'm looking around like, okay, well, I've already failed at my first job. I'm out here to ask Brett Bielema questions, and he's done. And then the reporter next to me is like, yeah, I mean, 15 minutes is all they get. And so that wasn't really your fault. But I didn't get to ask a question. But Abbie, you did.
I did. I was, I don't want to say I was more prepared because had Matt Rule taken 12 minutes, I wouldn't have got my question in. But I was told, you put your hand up right away. It is like as soon as he's done talking and waiting for questions, you just stick your hand up and you try to get the attention of the moderator. But yeah, I did get to ask a question. I was really nervous the whole time. I kind of tweeted about it the whole time and just I felt like I was going to throw up. I was like going to freeze. It is very nerve-wracking your first time. And I've been told that that's the case every year. The very first question you ask is always the like, okay, but then you kind of get used to it. You know what you're doing. But I was really fortunate. Yeah, I was really excited to get to ask a question.
I think you got a clip on the Big Ten channel and all that fun stuff, right?
Was it? Oh, that's exciting.
Oh, I thought.
It was.
I could be making that up. I thought I saw that on Twitter. I could be wrong though.
Oh, it was on the actual airing of Media Days. Yeah, I got to be on there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Very cool. So again, in the process now, of course, this is my first time, right? You have 15 minutes and I see Brett get off the stage and I'm like, okay, well, that was a wasted opportunity. And I sit there and I think Luke Fickell was after Brett. I'm just sitting there and I kind of look behind me and I see kind of an orange gathering. And I tell the reporter next to me, I'm like, you know what? I should go check out. Like maybe I'm missing something. I want to, head on over there. And sure enough, right as I get to that, there's a huddle over there. Brett Bielema is done talking individually to reporters. Again, my first time there, I didn't know that's what happened. Had I would have been there right off the bat. But luckily, right after that, Brett left and Illinois AD Josh Whitman came, recorded an interview with him amongst, like he was talking to about 15 other Illinois members of the media. But like that's happening at the same time as the next head coach is up on the panel. So if you've never done this experience before, it's like you really have to keep your head on a swivel to make sure you're not missing anything. And if you're going solo, good luck, because there's a lot of things happening all at the same time. I guess what happens next is once the coaches are done, you get like an hour for lunch. Free lunch is being served in the cafeteria, if that's something you were interested in. And then the player interviews are happening. They're right on the field. There was, I think, I would guess what, like 12 different stations. You think that's about right?
Probably. Yeah. Yeah. It's probably 2 schools worth of players, 2 schools worth of coaches, and then they flip flop.
Right. And in the meantime, you've got CBS set up with their location. You've got the Big Ten networks set up with their location. So the coaches and players they all have their own shifts and appointments that they're making their way around the media, essentially. I think they started off with the CBS folks at first, and then they would transition over to the Big Ten network production. And then how would you describe it? It's like there's a 45-minute block where the coach and players would each have their own individual station, right? And all reporters can go up to them. Like, you had coaches like Ryan Day, which is where actually Abbie and I finally met. Abbie was very nice. Me being nervous and looking around trying to figure out what I was supposed to do next, Abbie came up to me and, she introduced herself. We've been following each other on Twitter for a while. And, I'm glad you did that, Abbie. Thank you.
Yeah. I figured it was a good place to network too and meet all these people who we've interacted with before. So yeah, I'm glad too.
We met at the Ryan Day station, and we both made a joke that, there was like 50, 60 people there. They have, I want to say like 15, 20 seats there, but those are filled up by the time Abbie and I got to meet there. But yeah, that's kind of an opportunity where a lot of the individual media get to ask questions to the head coach. They have 45 minutes, I believe it is. And then the players, I think, is like 30 minutes.
It might be. I don't know if they get 45 or 30. Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. And were you able to ask any questions to the coaches at that point?
Not to the coaches. I went to Matt's and sat right up front because that's what you got to sit up front and get ready. And it's vicious. And in a, not in a bad way, but like you have to be willing and able to speak over people. And maybe this is part of that imposter syndrome that you kind of mentioned. I was like, hi, okay. Hey, okay. But it was like, oh, these are like real reporters. Like Brett McMurphy was there. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to interrupt him. That's fine. And later Dustin goes, yeah, just interrupt him. Just do it. Go ahead. So I didn't get to ask Matt any questions, but I asked the players. The players I thought that was more fun. It wasn't as packed. So you could kind of get up and chat with them a little bit. But no, the coaches were, I don't know what Brett was like, but Matt's was packed. 45-minute door-to-door, basically questions.
Yeah, no, Brett, he went long too, but Brett didn't mind really talking. He's always been very good with the media. He shook my hand before, I introduced myself, and then almost an hour and a half, 2 hours later, he remembered who I was. He saw me sitting there, answered any questions I had. Really, really, really nice guy. But I agree with you. The players, I think, it's a little bit more fun just because they're younger. They're kids. And, let's be honest, in particular with the Illinois kids, you had like maybe 10 media members there for each player to start off. But then as they got to ask their questions, the media members kind of walked away. And so the kids are still there for another 20 minutes or so. And then you probably just have 1 or 2 media members there. You can ask them whatever you want. You can have like friendly conversations. The big topic, I don't know if you got a lot of this, Abbie, is everyone wanted to talk about this video game.
Yes. Every single, so I kind of bounced between the 3 players and kind of did what you described, like asked my questions and bounced to the next one. And every single time I went, it didn't matter if it was the first player, the third player, whatever. There were questions about, do you like your ranking? Are you playing the game? What do you think of this? Who's the best player? It was like, this is it. This is the question this year, which makes sense. It's a big deal, but there's going to be so many stories about that, I'm sure.
I'm a little beyond my video game days. I bought the video game, and like my reflexes are so slow now that like I can't compete. So I'm trying to relate, but it's fun. The kids like it. The kids are getting compensated for it now. Obviously, the general public is super excited. I don't remember, a video game release that had this many people that excited. It had been like 11 years or so. So just to kind of wrap it up, like for me, I had to go home Tuesday night. I had a 4-hour drive in to Indianapolis that morning, and then I had once Brett was done, I recorded a quick recap for Locked On Illini. Then I joined Spencer McLaughlin on Locked On College Football, which I aired on this channel a couple days ago. And once that was done, I was spent. I knew I had another 4-hour drive home because I had to, my schedule didn't work out. I had to take care of my kids the next day. So I hit it back home. Abbie, you stayed a little longer than I did. Was there any difference on the other days compared to the Tuesday?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there were, I think there were quite a few where it was clear, like the Ohio State media kind of left that same day. I think a lot of the Illinois media left. And so I would say the next 2 days weren't quite as like full, but it was still pretty active. It was still pretty busy. And we stayed all 3 days and listened to all the coaches. We left right after Sharon did his podium talk. So we didn't stay for the individual ones for them, but no, it was basically the same thing every day. It is Dustin was very happy that I told him this was very boring. Once you get over the kind of, this is new and exciting. These are players that I'm really excited to see. This is my coach. Oh my gosh, look at this. And then it just became, oh, this is just you guys putting in 8 to 12 hours of work.
Yeah. And that's kind of like the purpose of what this episode is kind of about. And you and I were kind of discussing this before I hit the record button. For us, it was kind of a surreal experience, especially right off the bat. But then you look around and you see that this is just work, and you realize this a couple hours in. A lot of people are just rushing to get to this coach or that player and making sure they get, their audio recorder in the right spot in front of, the head coach to make sure that, they have all the content that they need. I guess, as we wrap it up, Abbie, how would you describe your overall experience?
I thought it was, I'm going to say this, and I don't mean it in a bad way. It was overwhelming and then really underwhelming. So I think, like I said, that initial shock, that initial feeling of I'm on the field, I'm at media days is amazing. It's a lot. Yeah, and then it kind of very quickly, I think, just is, okay, we're here again. We're doing this again. And there's little blips. People say things. You get to meet people. It's like there's little bits of excitement. But I mean, I would say that it is, it's not as like overall exciting as I think a lot of people think it is or want it to be. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, I think it's a good sign that the media members treat it like a job. I mean, because it is, but you don't get a lot of like really biased questioning or fangirling or fanboying or whatever. And I think that's a good sign that you don't want that in your media. You want them to be able to just ask their questions, be as unbiased as possible and do their jobs. So.
Yeah, exactly right. You see why the professionals are the professionals. Again, it's surreal at first seeing guys like, Brett McMurphy, Bud Elliott, Tom Fornelli, like my favorite college football, podcast.
Josh Tate was there. We walked by Josh Tate and I was just like, oh my God.
Right. Yeah.
Like, what? And again, Dustin's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
By the way, Dustin will be on my other show, Big Ten show. Make sure you tune in this week. He's going to be describing more of he's going to be wrapping up Big Ten media days, but from a content perspective. We're going to talk about some of the different teams and, the major stories coming out of the week. Abbie, as we wrap it up, once again, can you just let the folks know where they can find you?
Sure. So I'm on Twitter at Abbie something, and tune in if you're interested in any Nebraska content. It's the Go Big Redcast, and we are launching a women's specific kind of arm of that podcast where we'll talk about women's sports more. So that's where you can find me.
Perfect. I hope you all enjoyed this weekend fun episode of Locked On Illini. Again, on your way out, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It costs you nothing. I got wonderful feedback on last weekend's episode. And if you want me to continue doing that, just let me know. Let me know in the chat. That's all it takes. I can easily take the weekend off myself, but I actually enjoy interacting with you guys. And I will see you otherwise on Monday. ILL. Love you guys.